All right. So, hello and welcome. I'm glad you're joining us for this conversation on leaders who coach. I am Tim Smith, and I'm an executive coach and a leadership strategist with Barron Ridge Consulting. And um, today's session is part of ICF Virginia's celebration of International Coaching Week, and we're shining the light across what it means to lead differently by coaching, not just managing. So using a coach approach in your leadership interactions as opposed to maybe the more traditional directive or maybe even a command and control style that many of us are familiar with. So today we're joined by leaders who use this coaching style daily, leaders who are focused on helping others grow, not just answering questions or managing to get tasks done. We'll explore what the coaching style of leadership is, what it looks like in real life, how it impacts teams and organizations, and then also what gets in the way sometimes. So my hope is that you walk away with a few practical ideas that you can fold into your leadership development, regardless of where you are on that journey. Thanks again for being here, and a big thank you to our panelists who I will now invite to introduce themselves. Damon, would you be mind going first and tell us a little about yourself?
Sure, and thanks for having me. Again, my name is Damon Jiggets, and I have the honor of serving as the incoming CEO and president of Access College Foundation in Norfolk. I've just recently left my post as CEO with the Enrico Education Foundation. So, as you might imagine, my entire career has been in service to youth, whether it's been in an educational kind of setting or community-based setting. And I've been afforded an opportunity and been blessed to really work with so many wonderful youth development professionals, community leaders, nonprofit execs. And so coaching is near and dear to me. It's a part of my DNA. If I were not a CEO of an organization, I would be coaching a sports team. Absolutely. And so this is what I love, and I look forward to speaking with you all and sharing some time with you all today.
Thanks, Damon. Kelly, how about you?
Sure. My name is Kelly Rosado, and I grew up in corporate America, human resources. So started with several Fortune 500 companies, moved to a smaller company, and then most recently was the head of HR for a mid-sized privately owned real estate company. And I left there in June and am actually starting a business. So I had an entire period of rediscovery, which was really exciting. And have chose to do something with coaching, believe it or not. It's just a little different. So it's leadership development for children through soccer. So I bought into a franchise called Kids United that I'm going to be bringing to the greater Richmond area. So that's about me.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. Mary, how about you?
Hi, my name is Mary Riddick. I'm the Senior Director of Development for the College of Humanities and Sciences at VCU, and also dabbling in executive coaching, but also have a love for actually coaching on the outside. So I am a coach for the half marathon training team here in Richmond. So I think there's something really special about being with folks who have a dream and aspiration and being along with them every step of the way and running, like pun intended, every step of the way. Happy to be with you all.
Thanks, Mary. Lisa, how about you? Can you tell us a little about yourself?
I'm Lisa Smith, and I'm the Senior Director for Radiology at Carillion Clinic, a not-for-profit organization across Southwest Virginia. And it's a privilege of my life to be part of the organization. Coaching has been and is a cornerstone of leadership for me. I think really being in it together in healthcare, there's so much technology, so much change, managing from a human resources perspective, and coaching is a leadership skill that allows for us to innovate, to be kind to one another, and to grow. So it's such a privilege to be here too. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Roman, how about you?
So my name is Roman Devridier. I'm the CEO of EPON. It's a technology consulting firm. So we help companies modernize and innovate with cloud technologies. And myself, as you can hear, I'm French American. I cannot hide it. I've been here 20 years. I'm also a recovering engineer. So I used to be a computer engineer. And coaching is really important to me. So I think, like Mary, actually, it's funny. I'm a running coach for the marathon training team in Richmond. So I do that on the side. And at work, I manage very smart, high-performing engineers. And so coaching is a very good fit for this sort of innovative culture.
Thank you. Thank you all. I was already excited about doing this and even more so now. So kind of let's jump in and maybe I can throw the first question at Kelly. Kelly, how would you describe a coaching approach to leadership in your own words? Can you unmute? Thank you.
I think the easiest way for me to explain it would be that coaching focuses on meeting people where they are. So you as a leader, you as a coach need to understand where your people are coming from, get to know them, build a relationship as individuals, and know them as the whole person as much as they are willing to share. I think there's also a level of authenticity that is necessary to meet people where they are. But that's really how I would kind of encapsulate a coaching leadership style.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm curious, what other thoughts do we have on that question
This is
from the
Lisa.
panelists? Hi, Lisa. Thank you.
I love that so much, Kelly. I think you're right. It's that authenticity, that that connection that's made, and I have found the art of the powerful question, right? Previously in my leadership career, that spans about 25 years now. I found that that desire to have the answer or to know what's right. I really have found that the placement of that powerful question to avoid jumping to that conclusion. And there's several questions in my toolbox, one of which is, I'm really curious about that. I want to learn more about that. Tell me your perspective. Those things just open up space for that innovation and conversation. And I really love that about coaching.
Thanks, Lisa.
I'm glad you brought that up, Lisa, because that's like my thought about this was it's leading with curiosity instead of a directive. And Kelly, I really liked how you talked about the holistic person because we are so much more than what our job titles are.
And Tim, if I could maybe even add a bit of maybe a spiritual kind of bent to it, not to get too spiritual, but there's a scripture in the Bible that in Second Timothy that reads, "Fan till a flame your gifts from God." And in that, that really speaks to me. But what it really says to me is that everyone has value. Everyone has something beyond what's expected in a job description that they want to bring to a table. So the better that we are, posing the right questions to bring those attributes out of them, and positioning them in places where they can be successful, naturally successful, as opposed to being forced or coerced into doing something that may be less inclined to do, but just situating them for success. And so my measure of success has always been the success of those around me.
I think thank you, Damon. I think to piggyback of what you said, I like what Randall Stutman said in Admired Leadership about being a good leader, where he says it's important to be a fan of the person you coach. So I want to see my people succeed and really believe in them and being their fan. I think it's important as a stance.
Great responses. And if I can maybe pull some of the things, the authenticity that you bring as a leader that you're looking for. Damon, I think you said it well in breaking out the scripture passage is awesome. But to recognize the inherent value, right, that everybody brings And I think one of the ways I like to say this in leadership development is you lead people, you manage resources. You have to do both to be successful in a lot of corporate jobs. I get that. But that leadership piece, right? Really seeing the person that you're working with and their value. So that's great. Mary, how our next question? Could you share a specific time of when coaching really helped create a shift, a real shift in dynamic that you've seen, someone you lead?
Yes, absolutely. I mentioned earlier that it's leading with curiosity instead of directive, and that framework came from a very specific situation I'm about to share, which is a very intelligent, high-producing team member that just consecutively was just not missing the mark until then it was like a Friday, something happened, it was elevated to senior leadership, and it was just like, let's have a conversation about this next week. And there had been several conversations about, this is the job expectations, this is what's happening, much more directive of things. But opening up the conversation with this individual, I said, "What's going on? How are you?" And it just opened this whole other realm of things that this person was experiencing that was influencing things that were happening that really shone a light on the bigger picture, going back again to what Kelly said earlier about the holistic person. And in that, we were able to have a much more vulnerable, honest conversation and to co-create a plan of what we could do going forward to help provide resources that were needed on every level, while also making sure like things that needed to get done were getting done, right? But just that question, how are you? What's going on? Yeah. Instead of why are you not doing X?
Made a big difference. Thank you. Who else?
I agree. The what questions are very powerful, right? If you can ask what questions instead of why questions, that's another. And I also liked, Lisa talking about the powerful questions that she uses. For years, I had little stickies on my, desk or on my computer monitor that, were powerful questions, right? Because I had sometimes a tendency to try and solve other people's problems because I was the leader, and instead had to take a step back and make sure that they were solving their problems.
You know what I loved about that too, Mary, and and Kelly, it could be a little bit off course, but being in a mindset of really goodwill, having that assumption that what I'm about to hear is goodwill, and that in taking and being prepared for that instead of a different outcome. Oftentimes I am surprised by what that opening gives forth. The ability to share in vulnerability, right? Something that may be personal, that may be preventing success. And, Damon, you'd really referenced that in terms of that level playing field, that equality, and a coaching mindset really assures that we go into it with the right mindset.
All right, let me, if I can, I'll move this on to the next question, and then we'll see where that takes us. Roman, would you mind sharing your thoughts on how to balance the need for results with what appears to be the slower, more inquiry-driven leadership style of coaching?
That's a great question, Tim. The way I think about it is, I think with the coaching style, it's not just about one-on-one meetings, it's also team meeting management. And I try to shift discussions of results mostly in team meetings so that the team itself is able to look at the score, the KPIs, and these discussions, even task discussions, are more done at the team level where people can challenge each other about how things are going. And I prefer to use one-on-one coaching time for more personal development. So, still talk about results, obviously, but yeah, try to shift results discussion, what's the score, more to team situations. And I think that's the job of a coach to coach teams to have good meetings.
Yeah, I won't jump into this too heavily. I want to hear from other people, but I think that's a really cool. I'm glad you brought it, right? I think it's easy to tend to focus on the one-to-one individual component with this coaching style of leadership. But yes, I mean, it fits where it fits, and team interactions are great. Who else? I'm curious, what else are you doing? Do you believe that coaching is slower? Does it
Yeah.
move? Yeah.
Yeah.
Come
It
on, tell me
is.
more.
It is, and I think you've got to give it the time it deserves, And so, kind of piggybacking on Roman's comments about maximizing our meetings, right? So, we typically have our trip typically try to have two types of meetings. One is more qualitative, and the other is more quantitative. So we'll look at the results, the what did we do, but then the questions come out of the more qualitative conversations, those meetings where we can really analyze and get after how did we do, right? So we're really talking about culture and how we go about it, principles, values, all of that comes into those conversations that really inform what we do, and so when we get to really analyzing what we do in those qualitative meetings, quantitative meetings, those 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 meetings are way more productive because we've had those conversations about how we get to those results along the way.
So go slow to go fast? Is that
Absolutely.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Who else? This is a good one. This is where I hear a lot of pushback in the leaders that I work with that are resistant to this style. Oh, it's going to take too long. It's inefficient. It doesn't pay off.
So I've found that acknowledging that it is not efficient from the get-go is important. Like if your sole purpose is to get the quickest answer, then this is not the way to go about it. But if your purpose is to get the best out of your people, if your purpose is to get the best answer, if your purpose is to get the most creative answer, then empowering your folks to be able to work together as a team, to be able to be authentic and share what they can bring to the table will spur the kinds of things. So it's, I don't know, like I come back and forth with like, an ounce of prevention, versus a pound of cure, right? Like if you put in that nugget, that comment of how are you doing? How's your family? What happened this weekend to, maintain the relationship, then you're going to get on the other end the best that that person can bring to the solution that you're looking for. And it once you're there, it does happen quickly. It just doesn't happen quickly from the get-go.
A good distinction between wanting the best answer and wanting the fastest answer, right? Wanting quality over maybe quantity. There are times that you want a fast answer. There are times that we need the fast answer, but we don't always need the fast answer. So I think that's a great distinction to kind of create as people are thinking about how to grow into this, or how to start using it. Great, helpful. Thank you.
I would agree with that. There are times, and especially in healthcare, where the answer needs to be fast. There are certainly times when care, where it needs to be fast. And really understanding when coaching is that right approach. And one of the projects that I've been working on is with my supervisors and managers on coaching. And we've been having role play around coaching and really warming up that, that frontline leader. I mean, they're in the mix of it, right in the moment, having those powerful questions, having that coaching mindset, because so much can be affected in that moment. And it's been wonderful. I think it has created empowerment. It's positive, improved morale. One of the measures we use is, employee engagement results, patient satisfaction results. all of those things, when you think about coaching, those things are barometers for how that frontline leader, how the teams are functioning. And I think the work has been exciting. It has taken time to grow that comfort level. You have to have psychological security. You have to have a workspace that has all of these fundamentals. But it's been fabulous. I just wanted to share that bit.
Lisa, thanks. I really like the emphasis I'm hearing on the frontline leader, and that is, one of the most challenging job transitions that people experience, in a career, that move from individual contributor to frontline manager. And if you guys are supporting them with this kind of skill set, I mean, that just says a lot, right? And I can't imagine that it doesn't have just tremendous downstream effects. The barometers, right? Very nice. Damon, would you be up for this question? What are some tangible behaviors or habits you rely on to stay in a coaching mindset, particularly when there's some pressure going on? Can you unmute, please? Thank you.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I just recall my time with communities and schools of Richmond years ago, and working and growing, working with and growing that team. And I walked into a meeting one time after being held up by my boss. Uh, and I walked in and I said, okay, let's go to get the meeting started. And members of my team said, well, we've already started. We've got it. We're already moving along. We've already started the agenda. And I sat there, and at first I was like offended. I'm like, wait, you didn't even wait for me. But then I was, I had to think to myself. I was like, wow, no, they actually do have it. They've actually got it, right? And so, and so I bring that example up because that was definitely coaching, getting them to see themselves as I would see the situation and handle the situation in a way that they felt was in keeping with our values and our principles of the organization, but doing it in their way, right? And so I always try to present jobs and opportunities as like you're the CEO of this role. All right. So I'm going to trust, I'm going to empower you, I'm going to support, I'm going to clap my hands when you're successful. But this is you, this is your universe. You show me what you got. You know what I mean? And so it's really, I mean, it really is that kind of a coaching in the way that a coach of a basketball team would approach a situation. And that's really how I've done it. So it's like the CEO of your own role, and also like to utilize what I refer to as second paychecks. And so we get the compensation, the monetary, acknowledgement of our work. But that second paycheck is when you're in front of members of your team and you're celebrating something that went on during the course of the week. So I can point to Kelly and say, Kelly, you may not be aware of this, but I saw you shine in this way. You know what I mean? Let's take a moment and just really celebrate what you were able to accomplish, no matter how small or large it is. But just really taking the time to provide that second paycheck, to our folks, and it's something that you want to make sure that everybody understands, sees the value and what that contribution was to the effort and to the team, and so that's very important. And as you might imagine, I get very passionate, so I like to have pep talks. So at our weekly meetings, it is really about a rallying cry. Like, what is the objective for the week? And I'm gonna really make sure that everybody's like, okay, let's go, let's go, let's go. And that's just really been a part of it. And even allowing others to kind of stand up at the front of the room and give that rallying cry themselves, particularly if it's something within their department. You know what I mean? And just really just handing the microphone over to them to just rally us around that effort.
Thanks. I want to hear from some others as well, but there was something you said early on that just really stood out. And it's not just about the trust and empower that you're given; it's also the challenge and responsibility that I'm hearing as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, mundane tasks and things like that doesn't get it done. They're not able to contribute their value, but it is like setting them up for like, what is this thing that's going to stretch you a little bit, right? That's where the secret sauce is.
Yeah, I like that. So, all right, got a great panel. Who else has uh, behaviors, habits? What helps keep you in the coaching mindset?
I have to say I prepare myself every day to be in the coaching mindset. As leaders, we have to take care of ourselves too. We have to be kind to ourselves. And for me, I assure that if I find I'm getting in a sticky situation and I can have a barometer, I actually wear a watch that lets me know if if my heart rate's going up, what's going on with me physically, right? I really take a moment, deep breathe, assure that I am taking a moment, really listening empathetically, taking some time. And I always know that it doesn't have to be an immediate answer, right? Can always give space to think about it. You know what? That could be just the right thing, but let me think about that a little more. Let's take this together. Let's come together with a group and rethink this. Those are the kind of things that I guess help me in preparation for staying in it and being positive. I mean, ultimately it's just a privilege to be part of the team and just being positive. Like many, and healthcare is hard sometimes. So, really being positive about our service, our future, those things are important too.
Thank you. Who else? All right, let me move us on to our next question. Lisa, I'll throw this one to you if you don't mind. What do you see as the most common misconception about this coaching style of leadership?
Well, I think one of the areas we already struck on, and that is that it's time consuming. It's going to take more time. And I think that is probably the primary misconception. There are others. That it is, perhaps a process that would not gain results, that it's not directive enough, accountability, all of those things. For me, it's what this is really about is fear, right? Fear that connection, that it's going to take too much time to have a supportive interaction, that it's going to take too much time to create that meaningful listening, that time and space. And so, for me, it has to be about creating space because you're doing that without judgment, with an open mind and an open heart. And that is where you get the resilience and also a safe place. And we must have that to know the truth, to seek the truth, and to get all perspectives on the table. And it's unifying, and it's coaching mindset is unifying in so many ways. So those misperceptions, I think, is really fear-based. I think they're fear-based, and they're wrong. Sorry.
No, forget you're just right. Safe panel to say that on. Who else? What other misconceptions do you guys run across in this?
So I have a small story I can share. Years ago, when I worked for Capital One, we had a coaching person come in from Georgetown, and they did a coaching session in front of a group. And it was very, it was a really cool thing, but it was also at the very beginning. And they said, please, take notes. And, when we're going to ask you afterwards what what you observed. And so everybody took notes. There was a person who, came with a real problem that was significant. They were having a disagreement with their boss, and they did that. And the coach asked good, powerful questions. And then, he stopped the coaching session and said, okay, so what are your observations? 90% of the observations were about the problem the coach got to be brought up, right? So it was the person's problem and the solution and working through it. There was like maybe 1.5 observations about the questions the coaches were or the coach was asking to get the conversation to happen. So what I took from that, and then I saw years later, is that actually, if you're doing a really good job coaching, people are wondering what you did. Like, didn't that woman solve her own problem? Like, she talked about it. She figured it out. All you did was sit there with her. right? And so one of the funny things to me is if you don't understand a lot about coaching and how you can powerfully hold space for someone to, in fact, solve their own problems and how helpful that is for them. Sometimes the misconception is that if you're using a coaching style, you didn't really do anything, right? But in reality, if you go and you ask that person, like that coach did, they gave all the credit to the coach and said it was a really helpful, really valuable session. If you hadn't asked those questions, I wouldn't have thought of this solution, right? So that's what I see as probably the most common misconception is that, oh, well, they didn't do anything. Okay, maybe not.
Kelly, that is a good one, a great point to bring up. I think if we're doing it well, right, we're creating the opportunity or the container or the space for somebody to really be empowered and to sort out their own problem or challenge. All right, so maybe last question, I'll throw this one out to the group. In what ways has your leadership had to evolve? Your personal leadership style, how's it had to evolve to more fully integrate this coaching style into your work?
Maybe I give this one a shot, if that's okay.
Please.
So I think for me, it was really interesting when I became a manager a long time ago. First, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder because I view managers as the people who are very confident, make decisions for people, loud in meetings, and these are all things I am not. I'm an engineer. I'm pretty introverted, and I was really bummed by that. And actually, when I discovered that servant leadership is a thing, coaching is a thing. I was lucky because it was my natural style. So I don't really answer the question. Maybe I think it's hope for people who are introverted and quiet that they can be leaders and actually make the very good leaders. So,
thank you. Who else?
I'm actually really interested in what Roman just said because he talked a little bit about his background of he's an engineer by trade and then supervising engineers, right? So it could be a very difficult situation to go into managing people in an authoritarian way who were very, very smart, right? Because then you hit massive resistance. Right. So asking questions to trigger their curiosity, right, is something that that just came to me as you were sharing that, right? And my guess is it came pretty naturally if both the servant leadership and the coaching styles work for you.
It's a good point. Yeah. Thank you, Kenny.
It's almost like a natural evolution for us, right? As we kind of, grow in our careers and get a little long in the tooth, if you will, we tend to just really shift. Our value systems as individuals change, right? So when we're younger, we're trying to prove ourselves, we're trying to get it done, we're trying to move up. But then when you get to be, a little bit more seasoned as we are, and then you start to think about like, okay, how can I ensure this, that those in my care are being elevated and are being grown or being supported and that kind of, so there's this generational dynamic that I don't know I really gave much, credit to or just really gave much thought to. But yeah, I mean, that is it. I mean, like I think about where I'm currently is we've got a staff of almost 200 individuals, most of whom are under the age of 30. So I'm not going to communicate with, Mary, Lisa, and Roman, and Kelly, or you, Tim, in the same way I'm going to do this 25-year-old who's trying to buck the system, feels like he's entitled to any and everything and should already be the CEO, and so coaching for that individual is going to look a little different than it's going to look for someone a bit more seasoned. And so I've had to really be very intentional about like just shifting and adapting to the growing organizations I've served. Because if you got a team of 10, that's totally different than managing a team of 100. And so you've got to be aware of what's needed as an organization grows and as we grow.
Yeah, great points, Damon. Thank you. And I think one of the things I've heard in this discussion is the idea of, and somebody said it these words, like meeting people where they are. And I think there's something inherent in the coaching style of leadership that has us want to do that, which is a totally different mindset or dynamic than the directive style of leadership. And yes, the directive style of leadership is appropriate at times, but if we can get people more comfortable with what coaching leaders who coach and how to do it, right? I think we can make some tremendous changes in the quality of work and engagement, the experience that people have. So, all right, I know we're really close on time. I'd love to hear. Maybe we could just bounce around. What's one tip? One tip something you've done that's helped you grow. A tip you'd share with the people that are watching our panel discussion. A place to start, or a suggestion, a book, anything. Mary?
I would say time equals trust. Like we've been talking about how much time it might take in this approach and things like that. But the underlying piece of that is it's trust in one another, trust in the team, and then you're coaching that person to also trust themselves. Someone said earlier, they're a CEO of their role. Damon, I think that was you. And so trusting that their own executive presence in that role, that they can make the right decisions. And it can't be undervalued. Trust is just so important.
Thank you. Next tip.
So I'm thinking about like the audience for this tip is the person who has, early in their career worked really hard to prove themselves, and they're known for problem solving and getting results, right? And now they're getting ready to step into their first managerial job. And the tidbit or the mantra that I would recommend for them is this my problem to solve? Right. So as they're talking to, the person that they're dealing with, more often than not, it isn't their problem to solve. It is the person that's bringing the problem to them. It's more likely that they need to be solving the problem. That, what brought you here, what got you to the party is not what makes you successful at the party, right? You've got to change your skill set, and the skill set to be successful is to help them solve their own problems, empower them to do them, cheer them on, give them confidence.
Thanks, Kelly. Roman, what's your tip?
Sometimes people ask me what the best way is to give feedback and to coach. And the first advice I give is to become better at getting feedback yourself, at being coached yourself. So my first advice is to get some coaching. And to really be careful about how you react in public when you get feedback. So I would say to coach, you have to first be coachable. That's my first advice.
Good. Thank you. Damon?
So in my mind, coaching is about continuous improvement, right? So whether you're on a basketball court or in a boardroom, right? It's all about continuous improvement. So two questions I've always asked is so what and now what? And in terms of our evaluation of how we've done as individuals or collectively, that so what question has really paid dividends in terms of being able to, again, like I was talking earlier, being able to take a qualitative and a quantitative look at the results, right? But then it's like the now what? So not resting on what we've been able to accomplish, pat ourselves on the back for a moment, but now we've got to grow again, right? Like we're just not going to be settled with this. There's this next elevation that we've got to get to. And so those questions have always like just really prompted, some wonderful conversations.
Good. Thank you. Lisa, you want to wrap us up?
I love what I've heard. It's been amazing to hear everyone's perspective and to learn together. And I think that's the key, right? Communities and networking like this, learning together, and being lifelong learners in coaching as a mindset, because there's always something new to learn, a new strategy. And I think what I love the most about coaching is that it's applicable. You practice it always. It's not just in the workplace. Suddenly, I found myself applying it outside the workplace too, outside my leadership role. And then that's when it becomes a true practice, right? When you know that these skills, go across our lives. And yeah.
It's a great one to wrap up on. Thank you. And I would agree. I kind of joked and said, the process of going through the coach education that I got, even if I never coached professionally at all, never made $1 from coaching, I was such that the transition it made in my life, like the quality of my life, who I was immeasurable. And I've always been grateful for that experience. And I'm with you. I think, continue to develop yourselves as coaching leaders. You're growing the skills that just make you a better human being. So listen, I will wrap us up. Really appreciated your time. Thank you all for being part of this conversation. I appreciate the honesty, the insight, the perspective that each of you brought today. Leading like a coach isn't about having the answer, and I think we've made that clear. It's not about having every answer. It's really about creating that space to let others grow, to stretch, to lead and to live and to learn in their own ways. Hearing your all's real world experiences really makes it clear how powerful this style of leadership can be and the shifts that it creates in people. And thank you again to our panelists for sharing their stories, and thanks to everyone watching for being part of this bigger conversation about leadership development, and personal growth. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all.
You.